Hi, and welcome to this press conference between Minister for Defense Pål Jonson and Minister for the French Armed Forces Catherine Vautrin. The press conference will begin shortly, and after the ministers have made their statements, we will take questions from the audience. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Madam Minister, warmly welcome to Sweden, warmly welcome to Stockholm and to Karlbergs Castle. It's a great honor to host you and your team here today, and congratulations on your appointments. It's a lot of hard work being a defense minister, but you're a very experienced politician, so I know you will do great things. Let me also say that we are also Sweden and France have a really good and close defense cooperation. It, of course, builds on the strategic partnership agreement that President Macron and Prime Minister Kristersson signed a year and a half ago, and I think we have done a lot of progress since then in deepening our bilateral cooperation. I think Sweden and France have a special responsibility when it comes to defense industrial production. We're one of the few countries inside Europe who have the ability to design everything from submarines, IFVs, artillery systems, and fighter aircraft. So that's something that unites us, and I'm glad to see that we're doing a lot of concrete progress on defense industry collaboration. I'm thinking particularly about the programs such as ELSA, but I'm also thinking what we're doing on the land domain in NLAW and Acheron, and possibly also the GlobalEye and also Aster 30, which is of course a very capable air defense system. So there's many things that unites us when it comes to defense innovation, defense industrial production, and we have a deep collaboration, and Sweden stands ready to take this work even further. I also want to express appreciation to France's commitment also to the northern flank of the alliance. We are glad and we're honored that you are participating in FLF Finland, which of course Sweden is the framework nation for as well. And as you all know, that is meaning that we have a special responsibility for NATO's activities when it comes to deterrence and defense in the north. And together, of course, with the UK, Italy, and the other Nordics, we are very focused on making sure that the alliance strengthens its activities even further to exercise deterrence and defense also on the northern flank. And FLF Finland, that will be a very important point. And together also, I know you're doing very good things also in Estonia when it comes to contributing to the alliance ability to deter and defend, and also in the Baltic Sea. Finally, let me also say that we discussed a lot about also our cooperation also inside Europe when it comes to supporting Ukraine. Sweden is very committed, of course, as you know, this is our top priority as far as security and foreign and defense policy go, to supporting Ukraine as well. And we discussed also the avenues for cooperation, what we could do also to strengthen the Ukrainian side so it can negotiate from a position of strength. So once again, thank you very much for productive discussions today, and I'm very encouraged of what Sweden and France can do together, both when it comes to strengthening the northern flank of the alliance, when it comes to the defense industry collaboration, but also being committed to supporting Ukraine for the long haul. Thank you.
Monsieur le ministre, cher...
Mr. Minister, dear Pål
Jonson, thank you very much for your welcome. I'm also very happy to be in Stockholm today for my first visit in Scandinavia. Of course, I came to exchange views with you on the security situation in Europe, on our common priorities to support Ukraine, but also on several elements regarding our cooperation. As you have just said, I would like to remind everyone that Sweden is a partner with whom our cooperation is deepening at an accelerated rate, and we appreciate the number and richness of our cooperative areas. Our wish this morning is to reflect a link of confidence, solidarity, and strategic convergence, which is becoming closer and closer. President Macron and the Swedish First Minister, the Swedish Prime Minister, have underlined this as well. Our cooperation is being reinforced both in cooperation against terrorism in the Nordic region, in the Baltic area, and also I want to underline that the fact that Sweden has joined NATO has given us the opportunity to develop the interoperability of our forces. You mentioned quite rightly, as far as the industrial base, our two countries both have solid industries as far as defense, industries that are on our territories and where we share as well the importance of developing our industrial cooperation. I'm also thinking, of course, of the anti-air defense systems and, of course, the naval domain. You, as I, have seen that these are high value-added areas for our territories, and our defense bases need to be able to get closer. As far as Ukraine, we have mentioned, and so have you, that the fact that that Ukraine is on the front line of the European defense, Sweden, as France, has made the choice of supporting Ukraine for as long as is necessary. And since 2022, we see a constant European solidarity involving concrete support to Ukraine. And here I would like to underline the mobilization Sweden has shown. You mentioned the Nordic area, the Arctic as well. France as well will continue acting to maintain stability in this zone. French armed forces will be doing their part, everything they can, to maintain security and stability in this area. And I will remind you that in 2025, the exercises we've had and the Arctic response exercise in 2024 allow us to continue working on this subject. So this morning we had very constructive exchanges and discussions. And once again, thank you for your welcome, Mr. Minister.
Thank you, ministers. All right, now we will take some questions from the audience. Please say them in English and a maximum of 2 questions at a time. Starting with Dagens Nyheter over there.
Hello, I'm Pia Gripenberg at Swedish Daily Dagens Nyheter, and I have for both of you regarding the letters of intent that Sweden and France have with Ukraine on fighter jets. And I wonder, can Ukraine actually have both the Gripen E and the Rafale, and then how shall it be financed? And this letter of intent, shall they be seen more as a political signal towards Russia rather than an actual business deal? Voudrez-vous que je répète en français ou?
Okay, so in regards to the fighter aircraft to Ukraine, the Ukrainian side has been very clear from the onset that they expected to have a mixed fleet of about 250 aircrafts, and we have been aware of this and we've been communicating because both Sweden and France are of course together with 14 other countries in the Air Force coalition. So everything we can do to help the Ukrainian Air Force is of great interest for us. As you know, this is not yet a business deal between any of the countries. It's a letter of intent, but it's a strong political message, I think, on both sides that we want to make this happen. I think it's in Europe's interest for Ukraine to have have strong air defense capabilities as well, and we'll be discussing complementarity and so forth during today's discussion. We also touched a little bit on the financing, and I think we both agree that now is the time is up to make sure that we use the Russian immobilized funding for providing support for the Ukrainians. Our view is, of course, that the Ukrainians must also have a say on how this money is used as well. So we expect a dialogue with France also in regard to, or a dialogue with Ukraine also in how they think this money can most effectively be absorbed in the Ukrainian armed forces, defense industry, or the budgets.
Je vais compléter en disant que ces lettres d'intention.
And I'll add to that by saying that these letters of intention signed by Ukraine with Sweden and then with France last week are entirely complementary, and they are so complementary that last week in Paris, President Zelensky signed short-term acquisition agreements, as well as drones, for example, and then more long-term ones, such as Rafales. And we have to say that we are looking at a timeline that is a bit longer, with a country that obviously needs to rearm even after a ceasefire, or even better, a peace deal, to ensure its security, and that's the spirit that these accords were reached in.
Reuters?
Reuters
agency. You for both ministers, please. You mentioned the global ideal. Have you had the chance to discuss that today, and are you making any progress towards an order?
No secret, we did discuss it. Of course, we signed similar to an MOU at La Boucher in July, and I think the possibility of global eye would be a good capability for France to have when it comes with the sensors and the surveillance to it as well. So we had indeed have discussions to it, but I will let the minister, of course, provide the details for it as well. I think it's a good European capability and at the unique position right now.
Effectivement, la France a regardé.
Yes, France has watched the Global Eye program with great interest, because France needs to replace its materiel. So for France, working with Sweden is a cooperation centered around our values, our shared history, and centered around our exchanges, which are exchanges that go beyond the acquisition of materiel. What we want is to naturally build this relationship, which is making a lot of progress and which obviously allows us to exchange experience, training, complete training, and it is in this spirit that we are moving towards the acquisition of a program such as Global Eye. So as you can see, we are not just clients, we are just like we hope Sweden will be in another domain by buying our frigates, for example. We are first and foremost partners, and as partners we have industrial defense capabilities, industrial base and industrial debase that Global Eye will be very important for.
And then SVT.
Yes. What are your expectations for the peace plan currently being negotiated about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and what do you see as the biggest challenge?
Je n'étais évidemment pas.
Obviously, this weekend I was not in the discussion that occurred, but everyone can just hope for peace in Ukraine, and this peace can only occur, of course, with the accord of the Ukrainians, and that means that at the negotiating table, the European partners have to be there as well. This is a subject that must gather all actors. Ukraine means European security in some sense, so obviously the Europeans need to be a party to the discussions, and of course the Ukrainians do as well.
I think that the importance of making sure that this is a fair and sustainable peace is very important. Of course, everything about Ukraine should be done together with Ukraine. The other principle that those things that entail a European role, then we as Europeans also need to be engaged at the table. I think there has been during the last 48 hours slightly more alignment in regard to that process, but also are some of the principal stance that we have. A fair and sustainable peace is very important, and also making sure that the Ukrainians and we as Europeans are fully involved. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to have any success in regards to the negotiations.
Bonjour, Swedish television. How can Europe put pressure on Russia to accept the proposal to a peace deal that Ukraine, together with Europe now, has presented? And also, Ukraine has pretty clear red lines when it comes to a peace deal. Do Europe have the same red lines as the Ukraine? Thank you to both ministers.
If I may, the road to peace in Ukraine goes by increasing sanction pressure on the Russian side, especially the energy we know that can make a difference. We are therefore, of course, we will now have the 19 sanctions package already adopted by the EU. We are open for having more sanctions on the Russian side. The other thing that we are closely connected to is identifying more ships that are connected to the Russian shadow fleet, which is of course operating in the Baltic Sea, but also elsewhere. And we appreciate what France did just the other week on also in regarding to apprehending a vessel connected to the shadow fleet. The other aspect, of course, is to making sure that the Ukrainians can negotiate from a position of strength and making sure, of course, therefore we've been focusing on increasing our military support to Ukraine as well, and making it a long-term commitment. As you know, we have a financial framework for providing the Ukrainian support for about almost 4 billion for 2026 and another 4 billion euros for 2027 as well.
Je vais simplement ajouter.
I will just add that in these conditions, of course, we need to make sure that Ukraine is at the table and accepts the proposals that are made, in particular as far as rebuilding Ukraine, which is one of the key elements in the very short term for this country.
One question over there.
Étienne Fontaine for Agence France Presse. The heads of the Swedish and French armed force recently expressed their concerns about the possibility of a Russian attack on a NATO country. Do you think that population of both countries are prepared for such a possibility?
Well, in regards to Sweden, I think there is an awareness in the Swedish public, and the opinion polls also indicate during the last 5 years that our security environment has deteriorated very quickly due to Russia's full-scale invasion into Ukraine. Therefore, we've done a lot of measures also to increase that awareness. You might know that the Swedish Civil Contingency Agency sent a pamphlet to 4.7 million Swedish households, what to do in case of a crisis or a wartime situation. We are as well on the biggest rearmament process of Sweden since the 1950s. We are greatly helped by having all 8 parties in the Swedish Parliament also supporting that as well. And that means that we have a bipartisan agreement on defense, and I think that's good for the political leadership and the continuity as well. So, and we have tripled our defense investments since 2018, and we have doubled them in the last 4 years. So I think those are signs of the awareness among the political side, but also on the general public when it comes to the severely deteriorated security environment. And as you might know, sir, we have actually called this one of the worst times of European security since the end of the Second World War.
Je peux ajouter que expliquer.
And I can add that explaining the changes in the European situation, the world situation to our populations is naturally the role of the President of our Republic, which is what he did the 13th of July in his speech to our armies. He informed our citizens that the world had changed and the world has flipped, excuse the expression, but this is the importance of this is that the responsibility of our politicians is to anticipate and predict things and prepare. This is what my colleague, the Swedish minister, has said as far as how the Swedish nation is being prepared, organizing. France has increased its defense budget because in 2026 we'll be increasing our budget by 13%.
Swedish radio.
Maybe a question for you both. Have you discussed the potential deal of Sweden buying French fregates? And is there the government trying to make the case for French fregates in Sweden?
Touched upon the Swedish frigate program as well, but just right now where we are in that process is that no decisions has been made, but the Swedish procurement agency FMV has done a market survey. We're looking what frigates there are that are available that also could suit our quite ambitious timeline, as you know, and we expect to be given an advice by the FMV and the armed forces to the government, and I think and I hope that we can make a decision by early next year in regards to our new frigate programs. As you know, the ambition is to have 2 frigates ideally by 2030 and another 2 by 2035. What I can say, of course, is that the air defense component of that is going to be important as well, and it's going to be a step for us to integrate it into NATO's common air IEMD, integrated missile and air defense system as well.
La France est en capacité de répondre à la demande.
France could meet the Swedish request. We made an offer last October. We could deliver a frigate in 2030, an entirely equipped one, including defensive measures. And of course, we propose a partnership with Swedish industry, in particular Saab. Our model already exists. We have a frigate that is operational now, the Amiral Grenat frigate, which will be here in the beginning of next year. So France is at the disposal of the minister to answer any questions the minister or his team might have on this subject. But once again, we are prepared to deliver in 2030 if our offer meets Swedish requirements.
This concludes this press conference.